Welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is the best way for you to exit highly appreciated cryptocurrency, real estate, businesses, all tax deferred, so you can defer millions of tax and you can create and preserve more wealth. Hey, I'm your host, Brett Swarts. Each episode, I'm joined by some of the best real estate, financial, wealth, and crypto minds in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration. So together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. We're also streaming on expertcrsecrets.com as well. And I'm excited about our repeat guest. He is the CEO and founder of Boron Capital, official member at Forbes Business Council, and he runs Boron Capital runs hedge funds in cryptocurrency, self-storage, and mobile home communities. And he's got an extreme global economic volatility requires an untraditional wealth strategy to win. So I'm so excited to have Blake Templeton back on the show with me. Blake, how you doing, brother?
Man, fantastic. It's good to see your face again.
Absolutely. And for our listeners getting to know you for the first time, give them quickly your story, and then we're diving into all things. And this is going to be a fun one, everybody. Bitcoin InKind tax deferral transfer, which is going to be exciting. So Blake, take it away. Tell us your story.
Sweet. Yeah. So 15 and a half years in real estate and now in cryptocurrency. Started back in 2006. Without a penny to my name, I wanted to own my own business some way, somehow. Went into real estate, did really, really well in real estate, done 365 plus transactions. We focus on self-storage and mobile home parks. Wanted to dive into the digital world of cryptocurrency. And cryptocurrency really grew legs in 2019 with multiple specific things happening. A high rail transfer where you could literally put Bitcoin on a custom debit card and go to the restaurant and swipe it and actually make a transaction. To multiple other things like large companies like Square and PayPal investing into Bitcoin, and then large publicly traded companies actually putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and so many other things. So at this point, now we're in 2022. This is like light years. This is like decades in the crypto world that's taken place. And there's now massive businesses on the back end blockchains. So I would just quickly say it's like if Apple had an iPhone, they had a platform called the App Store. Bitcoin has a platform called the blockchain with apps, with business apps on it. And these are what create massive, massive dollars moving with purchases and adoption. And so that's what creates cryptocurrency. The value is that what's happening behind the scenes, not necessarily what's happening on the news. So, exciting stuff.
It's totally exciting. And so we can geek out about that for a long time. And I love that. And we're going to geek out on Bitcoin InKind tax deferral transfer. So part of what we do here, Capital Gains Tax, which is help people exit cryptocurrency using the Deferred Sales Trust. We've done it for Bitcoin and Ethereum so far. But I was talking with Blake on the last episode, which was about a month ago. Check it out on YouTube or iTunes when it comes out. Look up Blake Templeton and Capital Gains Tax Solutions. But we started talking after the show, and he brought it up. I was like, oh my gosh, you got to come on and talk about that. We kind of ran out of time. And so, Blake, what, first of all, is Bitcoin InKind tax deferral transfer? What does that look like? Can you kind of walk us through the implications of what this means?
Yeah. So first of all, one of the most common questions we get is, potentially as an investor, can I contribute my appreciated, virtual currency? Can I put that into a pool or a hedge fund tax deferred? So I maybe bought Bitcoin in 2017 with maybe 2,000 a coin. It's 42,000 a coin. So maybe I've got 7 figures, 8 figures in cryptocurrency and didn't even know it. How do I put that into something that's less volatile? And so the IRS in 2014 essentially stabilized their definition of how Bitcoin was going to be looked at. And it's looked at more as a security, specifically a property. and therefore generally it's obviously tied to capital gains and losses with the tax treatment. And they've essentially allowed an in-kind transfer, which means you're not selling it, but you're essentially positioning it into another vehicle. And without a sell, it's not taxed. It's not, you can defer that tax. So all your growth gets to be deferred, and then that gets to be put into the hedge fund. And then that now gets to be dispersed between the other cryptocurrencies that we swing trade back and forth, where you can obviously outpace the price of Bitcoin tax-free on that transfer.
Okay, so that's a lot there. I'll make sure I can unpack some of this. Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, let's just say I bought Ethereum or I bought Bitcoin and I bought it for a price that was like 100,000, and let's just start turn into 5 million. Are you saying that you can exit, or transfer, or like kind transfer that 5 million value worth of BTC into a fund and remain tax deferred? Is that correct on step one?
Yeah, correct. And it's important to remember it's a in-kind versus a like-kind transfer. So it's not a 1031 because we're not actually selling anything. So that Bitcoin comes directly into the fund, and then we then take, because you're buying shares into the fund, and then we then take that and disperse it between the other coins. So yes, you're 100% correct. Tax deferred coming into another vehicle.
Okay, so good. 5 million in kind, right? You're not selling anything; you're just transferring it into the fund. But then once it's in the fund, you said you're dispersing it. So are you selling it at that point?
No. So those funds then come into the hedge fund, into the conglomerate, and then everything that's done in the hedge fund is being dispersed between the strategy of the hedge fund. So John, who transferred his money in, everything in his transfer in is tax deferred. Everything that's happening now inside. So we have some short-term trading. So he may have some short-term capital gains that's happening. We're talking like triple-digit numbers here. So they're large returns in the fund. But we're paying short-term capital gains because we've got some, some trades that are happening. But everything as money is coming in, that's what we're focusing on. Is we want to make sure he doesn't have any consequences on the front side, and that's what we can do on an in-kind transfer.
Okay, so let me break it down again. So 5 million transfers in, and then it's in there. And the returns are based upon these other investments that are part of the hedge fund, or because you have shares in the hedge fund, right? So the hedge fund might have other cryptocurrency or other assets, right? And so you're sharing in the overall appreciation of the fund because you bought shares in the fund. Am I following that correctly?
You got it. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're not necessarily exiting the Bitcoin, right?
Correct.
It's just a part of the overall fund, and so you're no longer, so you're a part of it's like you're diversified. It's like you're putting into like a big IRA that's shared with a bunch of people. Is that kind of like it too?
Very similar, yeah. So it's you're diversified with a strategy to hold. The fund holds a portion of Bitcoin at all times. It's ranged from 30%, 65%, and then typically we hold 5 or 6 other coins. So Ethereum, Luna, those, Cardano, Harmony, and then we're looking at these short-term narratives that. And it's not speculation. I mean, when we're looking at behind the scenes at what's happening on either their blockchain or in their actual strategy, we're seeing the money, the velocity happening. So we actually are making moves, knowing what's happening and buying low and then selling high. It's kind of looked at as, you may even call it a digital real estate, on that side of it for all my real estate people. And so this is how one can get into larger plays, especially in volatility. So in volatility, if Bitcoin's in volatility and it's not doing well, in a hedge fund, the diversification allows you to do well. Volatility is really good in a fund like this because it gives us something to work with to
Perfect.
make larger gains.
So let's pause here. So at what point is the 5 million taxed, like capital gains tax? Because I bought it for basically 100,000. It's worth 5 million. Let's just say I have about $1.8 million, $1.9 million in tax. At what point am I actually getting capital gains tax on that?
Good question. So those funds come in. Let's just say we're holding 2 million of the 5 million in Bitcoin, and then 3 million is then diversified into the other coins. If Bitcoin goes sky high, nothing changes because there's no tax ramifications until this is sold. On these 5 coins or so forth, this 3 million that's here, the only taxes we're paying here are on the short-term capital gains. So this 3 million, let's just say we take this, and at the end of the year, this is now 5 million. So now we have 2 million that's short-term capital gains. And so, whatever your rate is on your short-term capital gains, you'd be paying that on that specific piece.
Okay, I think I follow that, but however, I came in with 5 million. So how did my 5 million of BTC, how did 3 of that get over to Cardano, Luna, ETH, and Harmony without being taxed? That's the part I think I missed.
Yeah, so in a InKind Transfer, it's transferring into a pool or in a hedge fund. And how the IRS sees that is it's an in-kind transfer, meaning it's not looked at as a different security because inside the fund. Whereas if you were going to go do it yourself on your own and go into, say, Cardano or Harmony, you're going to have to sell yourself. But it's a tax basis on how you came in, and versus you doing it yourself. So if you did it yourself, you're gonna be taxed on it.
If it works, it sounds really cool. You know what I mean? Like, it sounds amazing. How many of these have you guys done? Has it been tested by the IRS? Like, those are, because honestly, I get approached with a lot of stuff, Blake, and it's like, and I'm like, wow, that sounds amazing. Like, I had one actually today, and the guy's like, you don't need a third party trustee. You can run everything yourself, and like, it only costs $50,000 to set up. And this is like $100 million NFT sale we're working on. And I'm like, hey, that sounds amazing. I'm like, and if it's better than everything we do, and it's totally legit, then I'm gonna start. I'm gonna redo Deferred Sales Trust. I said, but here's the question I want to know. I go, how many? I can already hear him start to laugh on the other side, start to smile on the other side of the phone. I said, how many of these has he done?
Sure,
and he said,
yeah.
He started to smile, and he's like, 22. I'm like, look, you're about to sell $100 million worth with NFTs, and he's done 22. Like, and I can imagine he's even got one audit on those. Like, the Deferred Sales Trust is thousands, billions under management,
Sure.
25 years, right? Over a dozen no change IRS audits. So even if what you're saying is awesome, and maybe it's completely amazing, it's going to be hard for me to take a chance on something like this. And I mean, call me in 23 years when you've been doing that for a while. So I'm curious, what's the track record for what you're talking about?
Yeah, so we've done multiple of these over the last 2 years. We've obviously, again, like I said, in 2019 is when cryptocurrency really grew legs. So 2 years is really the only time one could have done it specifically. January 2018 is when IRS really processed this in a serious way. IRC 721A says there's no gain recognized on transfer of property in exchange of partnership interest. Speaking of virtual cryptocurrency into a hedge fund. So that's that is their specific.
Say that one more time. IRC
721A.
721A.
There's no gain recognized.
And I imagine you have because you're smart. And you, by the way, people don't know, like, Blake he's done multiple millions of property, and he runs with some really, really ultra high net worth individuals. And so I imagine you have a top CPA or tax attorney that's helping you putting this together, right? I mean, Blake's not just he's not just looking up these things online himself and then putting them together, right, Blake? So let people know that.
Yeah. And so, I guess the most important thing is if anyone has a interest into that, then we can go deeper into the specifics. And then obviously, we can speak with your CPA and your attorneys and make sure everyone sees the alignment of the IRS code. Most importantly, though, is on a high level is and that's why, Brett, I love your show, is that your mindset is that we don't want to become what's called the natural condition of man, where we fall asleep and become a machine. We don't want to put our head in the sand while everything else is happening around us. We don't want to gain bad rules that maybe were a good rule in the 1990s in the stock market boom, and then you just never changed your rules and on things that don't serve you. So I really appreciate your openness and your where you see a bigger play in helping everyone steward their wealth. Obviously, we're both Christians, so it's this mindset of like stewardship, wisdom, seeing it from what I would call God's perspective, looking down on it, seeing through all the camouflage. There's so much volatility and camouflage, soap opera going on. So big picture is if you have cryptocurrency and you're interested in that, then that would be an interesting thing for you to process and see if it's a good fit for you.
Absolutely. By the way, you can learn more about Blank Templeton by going to BORONCAP.com. That's boroncap.com, boroncap.com. And so, cool. Let's shift a little bit. Let's chat a little bit about just the current state of values for cryptocurrency. What are you seeing right now? Bitcoin hit almost a high of about 69,000. I think it dropped to about 35, and ETH as well is been, typically correlates a lot with BTC, right? So what are you seeing? What's kind of your feel for the current temperature of the crypto market?
Yeah, we're obviously very, very bullish. There's some things right now that are creating volatility, like in China, the largest developer who has 300 billion in debt is not able to pay their debt service, and there's right now a massive developer every single day right now filing bankruptcy in China. So obviously you got your ghost cities, your ghost towns of massive high rises. And so when the conglomerates with a 300 billion file that they're not going to be able to make their massive payment of over $1 billion, we saw a spike or a dip in the stock market and crypto and everything, because it shifts the whole world when you've got those things happening. We've got that. Then you've got, obviously, with the Ukraine and Russia, everything has a interesting loop of some sort. So one thing I will say, just on newsworthiness, cryptocurrency, the culture of those who hold cryptocurrency, $52 million was donated through cryptocurrency when the U.S. banks couldn't get money in, when the U.S. government didn't send money to Ukraine. 52 million came through cryptocurrency holders into the Ukraine government to supply aid to the Ukraine citizens. So I think that speaks to the culture of the individuals.
That's amazing. That's not to be overlooked, right? 52 million, and probably raised with what, in a couple of weeks here, if that, right?
1 week.
1 week, $52 million, and it's instantaneous, right? Where they can get it together. And I wonder who organized that. But whoever did that, God bless you, right? You get to that aid, and that's incredible. Wow. I didn't know that stat. You know what I mean? I mean, part of just my head's been in the sand a little bit with what's been going on. It's so busy, but that's really amazing. So what else? So then, that billionaire went out, and you're looking at things that are hurting, but overall,
so
what else do you think?
Here's kind of a big picture. I think it's really important is that there's massive influencers that are completely turning a 180 and being maybe converted into a cryptocurrency optimist. There's multiple who've in the past. You've got Mark Cuban, you got Ray Dalio. Matter of fact, Ray Dalio, he owns the largest hedge fund, obviously, in the world. In 2017, he said, Bitcoin's a bubble. It's not an effective storehold of wealth, and it's volatile. And then in 2021, he says, personally, I'd rather hold Bitcoin than a bond. Now, for Ray Dalio, that is a massive statement, because 40% of his entire portfolio strategy was bonds. So you've got people like that, but the brand new news, the cutting edge, hot off the press is Ken Griffin, CEO of Citadel, who runs 235 billion in conglomerate investment firm. He was a massive crypto detractor. He's completely transformed. He was previously the guy dismissing cryptocurrency, calling it the jihadist call against the U.S. dollar. And this last week, he says that cryptocurrency is the greatest story in finance history over the last 15 years. He says the crypto market today is over 2 trillion. And I'll have to tell you that my call was wrong and I made a big mistake. And you'll see Citadel investing into cryptocurrency in some way this year. So massive, 235 billion under management, and comes out and says, hey, we've got to be in cryptocurrency. I was completely against it. This is actually where I've got to be. And you'll see more and more of this with the U.S. dollar continue to be, at almost 15% inflation. If we're looking at the real numbers, I mean, that means your dollar is just dying. I mean, it doesn't buy what it used to buy. And so when you get these big companies, they've got to put their money somewhere where it's going to store hold of wealth.
What's really interesting? I live in California. We've seen that kind of the destruction of California, like fiscally over the last 30 years. And my dad talks about, we built real estate growing up. My mom, dad in the Bay Area, and how much easier it was to do business, and how much more like accessible things were get done, and then you see the cost of labor and the cost of regulation, and then the cost of lumber and all these things, and just the housing crisis, and it's like they haven't figured it out, and they're just getting worse, and they just double down on this stuff. There's no accountability. So the part of the cryptocurrency part where I love is the ability to, in the real time, in the blockchain, to see every single transaction, right? It's there, right? And then the transparency of it all, and the instantaneous of it all, and the accessibility of it all, and the protection of it all, right? There's just my wife and I were considering moving to Florida, and part of it is just because we're like, California is just a train wreck. I mean, we love California part of it, but like fiscally, like I feel like in all the businesses that are just fleeing, right, they're going to figure out ways to get certainty of business climate, of regulation, of good job growth, of all of these things. And at some point, it seems like it's going to catch up with them being fiscally irresponsible, right? But they're not held accountable because they can just keep printing the money. So on the other side, in cryptocurrency, we don't have to invest in their dollar, right? So talk about that, Blake.
Yeah. So I look at cryptocurrency as and Bitcoin specifically as like a life raft out of the U.S. dollar. So the U.S. system desires for you and I to stay in the system. And so, but they understand that the monetary, the physical money won't last because they can't, but that's not even what they're printing. They're printing digital money. So they're creating digital wallets. China has a digital wallet for their digital currency. So everyone's going digital. The U.S. will have a digital currency. They've already made their plan to get rid of coins, and then they're going to go into the dollar bill and then the $5 bill. So you've already probably seen at restaurants where it says, we have a coin shortage, please have exact change. Okay, there's not a coin shortage. Are you kidding me? I mean, this is silly. So they're moving it into a system, a digital system. And why do they want it to be in a digital system? Because now they can track everything. So they can have your tickets. They can have your medical. They can have your actual ethnicity, and then they can actually these are things that are on the horizon that just process. Do your own due diligence, but they can actually then get rid of the IRS, and they can actually tax you through this digital system. So when your money comes in, they can just pull that money out. So that gives them too much power. They already have too much power because they can just print, which dilutes your dollar. So moving into Bitcoin, putting money into a storehold of wealth it's creates your sovereignty. It creates your freedom. You actually aren't owned. Right now, we're a slave to the U.S. dollar. You can't even vote to say, hey, you can't print that anymore. Matter of fact, 25% of the Fortune 500, the S&P 500 25% of them are what we call zombie companies. They can't even pay their debt service, and the U.S. government is just paying it for them. So this is where the economy is. You and I don't want to actually be tied to it. We can be of it or be in it, but not of it. And then we would want to have our wealth not in the U.S. dollar, where it's actually going down in value. So that's a massive benefit for cryptocurrency.
It's also a vote for commercial real estate, right? And investment real estate and housing for people, hard assets that produce cash flow, and then they get the depreciation to offset the taxes, right? Because the other concept here that we're really focused on in 2022 is it's no longer about cash flow, it's about tax flow, right? And it's just as important or more important than ever to realize that how your taxes flow and what you're paying and where you're living, right? And what businesses you're owning, what entity you're in. Like, it's always been about both, of course, but I feel like cash flow is like the thing that people, it's everyone's for cash flow, and I'm for cash flow. I love cash flow, but it's so important to know where and how your funds are flowing, because otherwise you could be in the wrong side of the rich dad, poor dad bucket, right? And you could just be paying a lot of taxes. Any last thoughts on that before we wrap up the show?
Yeah, I think just a bottom line. I mean, I love that mindset. And the thing is like, you have to actually call a timeout, cut the emotions, and just actually be aware of, as you mentioned, where your taxes are for your property taxes, where your tax bracket is, and start processing, the future. So we typically live in the past, but we got to be future present, where we actually make our decisions based on the future. And there was so much rapid growth and printing of money where you didn't see the consequences. Well, now we're tasting the consequences. And so now they're going to continue printing money because that's the only bullet in the gun. They don't have any other thing to help the economy. So you and I have to be good stewards and have our investments in the place that's actually going to be most profitable for us.
Makes perfect sense. Blake, I want to thank you for being on the show, and I want our listeners, if they want to reach out to you and connect to you, where can they find you?
Yeah, the absolute best way, I'm going to give you guys a private number. The best way is just to text. This number you can't call. It's just a text. So it's specifically for you guys. That text, you're going to pull out your cell phone. You're going to text the word invest to the phone number 877-771-0615. So you're going to text the word invest to 877-771-0615, and I'll respond personally.
Excellent, Blake. And I'm putting that up on the screen here in just about 3 seconds. So text the word invest to 877-771-0615, and that will get you with Blake. That's our custom fancy number. That's pretty cool. We never had a custom fancy number before. So make sure you get with Blake there. And thank you, Blake, for being on the show. We'll have you on again real soon. And I also want to thank our listeners for listening to an episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions Podcast. As always, we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy. Using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust to exit cryptocurrency, businesses, real estate, defer millions of dollars of capital gains tax, purchase at optimal timing, other assets, diversify, get some liquidity, and or perhaps even getting with Blake on his cool strategy to do in-kind tax deferral transfers could be another cool way, right? So do your due diligence with Blake, check all that out. And I also want to invite you guys to learn more about the Deferred Sales Trust by going to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. That's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. We have our Crypto DST Mastermind, which is pretty cool. We had about 15 people last week. We were shooting live for the best ever conference in Colorado. It was really cool. Check that out on YouTube. But every week we're gathering, and the community is growing and growing and growing. Those who have a vision for exiting when it makes sense for them, crypto or real estate or a business, diversifying, building their wealth. You can join that mastermind by going to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. It happens every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern. And then we also have our new book that's coming out. Look for this to drop soon on Amazon, Building a Tax Deferred Exit Strategy. And we have people like Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank in the book. Also really smart people. I got a couple chapters too. So look for that dropping here soon. Thanks everyone for watching. Please rate, review, subscribe.